Welcome back to another episode of Tales, Trails, and Taverns. For those of you watching on YouTube, never mind the t-shirt. This is just a shout out for the Beyond the Shadows boys.
Shit.
The shirt that we got when we went to the Conjuring house and I've worn like 3 times.
Okay.
It still looks so new on camera though.
So that's what you're rocking tonight?
Yeah.
I'm just rocking my usual hoodie and flannel pants that I bought from Motion Stage.
Steve's got a Santa hat on tonight. Says we're getting into the Christmas spirit.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year. Yeah.
What'd you say is your favorite fucking Christmas movie?
White Christmas is one of them. Muppet Christmas Carol is another one.
White Christmas.
White Christmas, yeah, that's a good one.
Seen that in forever, dude. That's an old movie, right?
That's an old movie, yeah.
Black and white.
It's in color. They've got an in-color version. You know, everything's been colorized. So you get to see old Blue Eyes.
Is it true that The Wizard of Oz was the first movie ever in color?
Don't think that's true, but because it switched halfway through first.
Have you ever listened to Dark Side of the Moon and watched The Wizard of Oz at the same time?
Not in entirety. Not the whole thing.
It's so shocking how fucking much that movie matches the album. I mean, now you can just go on YouTube and they have it like perfectly synced.
Oh, see, that takes all the fun out of it, though.
So when I was a teenager, the theory was, and my father told me, when the lion roars the third time, you press play on the CD. So like you remember the lion? Yeah. It would roar like 3 times.
Yeah. I know the sequence. Yeah, I know the magic spells. I've heard it so many times before. Press it. That's on the CD though. What about on the record?
I don't know. I didn't have a record of it to do it. I only had the Dark Side of the Moon on CD. So.
Oh no, that's too bad. My old man had a couple of them on record, and I used to listen to them when I was a kid. That's got to be a whole different ball game because you got to flip the record as A side, B side.
Yeah, that is weird. How would you do that?
So maybe it only started when the CD came out, or the tape.
Well, it came out in 74. It came out in 74. Was 8-tracks a thing by then?
I think so. I don't know. I think 8-tracks were still kicking around the 70s. I know. I remember having a bunch of 8-tracks at the house. My dad never had an 8-track player. But there were definitely 8-tracks around. There were cassettes. There were records. There was a record player.
My dad had a record player inside the nightstand. So it was like a coffee table nightstand.
Yeah.
And you open the doors up and there was a record player inside there that would slide out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he'd get hammered and listen to like Isaac Hayes and like Shy Lights and shit.
Yeah. We had one that was like a big cabinet. And the center section opened up on the top and the record player was in there. And then the sides were the built-in speakers.
Yeah. The old school built-in speakers.
Oh, yeah. Big old cabinet speakers built right in. It's a different times, man.
Dude, I remember my grandparents having one of those TVs that was like a big wooden piece of furniture wrapped around a television.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
All floors and shit. Remember those?
They were so big and heavy that when the TV broke, you just put a new plastic TV on top of it because you didn't want to get rid of the old one. It's too heavy. It's too massive. Nobody wanted to move it. So you used that as a TV stand. Use the TV as a TV stand.
Yeah, because that happened to my grandparents. Fucking thing died. My grandfather bought a Zenith and put it on top of it.
Yeah.
Man.
All right, ready to get into it?
We are ready.
All right.
Well, I'm going to bust through this thing and then I'm going to watch some Die Hard and then I'm going to this will be the 3rd time I've watched Die Hard this month.
Nice.
Nothing like watching Hans Gruber get thrown off fucking Nakatomi Plot.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Definitely one of my favorite Christmas movies.
All right, man. Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, people of the universe, our episode tonight is going to be on a little thing called the MKUltra experiment. I got 2 really cool articles, and then I actually got an article of a girl who was used in the program unknowingly, found out later on in life. Yeah, she spent some time in like a state school, not for like any mental disabilities, but she was like a juvenile delinquent.
Yeah.
And they used this experiment on her while she was there.
I think I might have heard of this one before, but yeah.
So the first one, the first article is from the History Channel. And it's It's titled "The CIA's Appalling Human Experiments with Mind Control." Okay.
Okay.
So on April 10th, 1953, Alan Dulles, the newly appointed director of the CIA, delivered a speech to a gathering of Princeton alumni. Again, with the Ivy League fucking schools.
It's always the Ivy League.
Yep. Though the event was mundane, global tensions were running high. The Korean War was coming to an end, and earlier that week, the New York Times had published a startling story asserting that American POWs returning from the country may have been converted by communist brainwashers. Some GIs were confessing to war crimes like carrying out germ warfare against communists, a charge that the U.S. categorically denies. Others were reportedly so brainwashed that they refused to return to the United States at all. As if that wasn't enough, the U.S. was weeks away from secretly sponsoring the overthrow of a democratically elected leader in Iran. Dulles had just become the first civilian director of an agency growing more powerful by the day, and the speech provided an early glimpse into the priorities of the CIA. In the past few years, we have become accustomed to hearing much about the battle of men's mind of war and ideologies, he told the attendees. I wonder, however, whether we clearly perceive the magnitude of the problem, whether we realize how sinister the battle of men's minds have become in Soviet hands. He continued, we might call it in its new form, brain warfare.
Brain warfare? Is that what you said?
Yes, brain warfare. Did you ever hear this guy, Alan Dulles?
Oh, not that I can recall. No.
There's a lot of shady shit about him when you get into the JFK assassination. I will not get into that because that'll lead me down a 25-minute rabbit hole.
Yeah.
If you ever want to look up Alan Dulles, JFK, yeah, just go do that. Trust me.
Yeah.
Dulles proceeded to describe the Soviet brain perversion techniques as effective but abhorrent and nefarious. He gestured to American POWs returning from Korea, shells of men they once were, parroting that the communist propaganda they had heard cycled for weeks on end. Or maybe they were just fucking fucked in the head because they just fucking got home from war.
I mean, yeah, seriously, it wasn't an easy war.
It was a fucking horrific war.
It was horrific. Which would you say, Korea or
Korea?
Yeah, no, that was nuts.
Yeah, so they're blaming fucking Korean vets with PTSD on brainwashing, but
yeah,
I
don't know if people realize that, but like,
to do with fucking watching your friends fucking freeze to death.
Yeah, right. No, PTSD and shell shock and shit like that. It does crazy things to you.
Yeah. He expressed fears and uncertainty were... My dad's father was a Korean War veteran, by the way. Not to get too off track. Yeah, because my dad's brother was 19 years older than him. So my dad was born and he didn't meet his brother until... Because my dad's brother did 25 years in the Army. My dad didn't meet his brother until my dad was like 10 years old. But like, yeah, he signed like straight out of high school, 17, like fought in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a 19-year age gap between my dad and his brother because my dad was the youngest of 9 and my dad's brother was the oldest one.
Oh, wow.
Just to, not to get off topic, but just to let you know. He expressed fears and uncertainty where they were using chemical agents, hypnosis, something else entirely. We are in the West. The CIA director conceded are somewhat handicapped in brain warfare. This sort of non-consensual experiment, even on one's enemies, was anti-ethical to American values. Dulles insisted, as well as antithetically to what should be human values. Fear of brainwashing and a new breed of brain warfare. Brain warfare terrified and fascinated the American public throughout the 1950s, spurred both by the words of the CIA and the stories of brainwashed GIs returning from China, Korea, or the Soviet Union. Newspaper headlines like New Evils Seen in Brainwashing and Brainwashing versus Western Psychiatry offered sensational accounts of new mind control techniques and technologies that no man could fully resist. The paranoia began to drift into American cultures, with books like The Manchurian Candidate and The Naked Lunch playing on themes of unhinged scientists and vast political conspiracies. The ideas of brainwashing also provided many Americans with compelling, almost comforting explanations for communist swift rise as Soviets used the tools of brainwashings not just on enemy combatants, but their own people. Why else would there be so many countries be embracing such an obviously backwards ideology? American freedom on the minds versus Soviet mind control, in quotations, became a dividing line as stark as the Iron Curtain. MKUltra. This is when we get into it. 3 days after a speech decrying Soviet tactics, Dulles approved the beginning of the MKUltra, a top secret CIA program for covert use of biological and chemical materials. American values made for good rhetoric, but Dulles had far grander plans for the agency's Cold War agenda. MKUltra's mind control experiments generally centered around behavioral modifications via electroshock therapy, hypnosis, polygraphs, radiation, and a variety of drugs, toxins, and chemicals. These experiments relied on a range of test subjects, some who freely volunteered for financial compensation, some who volunteered under cohesion. That's what that word is.
Yeah.
Under cohesion.
Coercion.
Yeah, coercion. Yeah. And some who had absolutely no idea they were involved in a sweeping defense research program. From mentally impaired boys at state schools to American soldiers to sexual psychopaths at state hospitals, MKUltra's program often preyed on the most vulnerable members of society. The CIA considered prisoners especially good subjects, as they were willing to give consent in exchange for extra recreational time or even commuted sentences. Here's when we get fun. Listen to this, and I've heard this about him before too. Whitey Bulger, a former organized crime boss. Folks, for those of you who don't know, Whitey Bulger is very synonymous where me and Joe live in Massachusetts.
It's big in the Northeast, yeah.
Bulger, a former organized crime boss, wrote of his experiments as an inmate test subject of MKUltra. 8 convicts in a panic and paranoid state, Bulger said, of the 1957 tests at the Atlanta Penitentiary where he was serving time. Total loss of appetite, hallucination, the room would change shapes, hours of paranoia, and feeling violent. We experienced horrible periods of living nightmares and blood coming out of the walls, guys turning into skeletons in front of me. I saw a camera change into the head of a dog. I felt like I was going insane. There was, to touch a little bit more on that, because I've studied Whitey Bulger quite a bit.
Yeah.
It fucked with him for the rest of his life. He suffered from severe migraines for the rest of his life, and he was a horrible insomniac. Yeah, I've read books. I read 2 books so far on Whitey Bulger, and it does talk a lot about the MKUltra experiments and how it pretty much fucked him up for the rest of his life.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't realize he was part of that. That's fucking crazy.
He did it to get reduced time.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense if you're in for a long time and you want to get out and they offer you something like that. Hey, free drugs in prison is long.
He was doing a 20-year sentence with a minimum of 15, and he got it shaved to 8 years.
Oh wow.
By doing the experiments.
I mean, that's a lot. It's a big difference.
Yeah. 7 years, bro. Bulger claimed that he had been injected with LSD. I'm going to fuck this up. Lysergical acid dilethamine, or acid, had become one of the CIA's key interests for its brain warfare program, as the agency theorized it could be useful in interrogations. In the late 1940s, the CIA received reports that the Soviet Union had engaged in intensive efforts to produce LSD, and that the Soviets had attempted to purchase the world's supply of the chemicals. One CIA officer described the agency as literally terrified of the Soviets' LSD program, largely because of the lack of knowledge about the drug in the United States. This was one of the materials that we had ever been able to locate that really had potential fantastic possibilities if used wrongly, the officer said. So they're talking about Dully's statement. With the adherent of the MK Ultra, the government's interest in LSD shifted from a defense to an offensive operation. Agency officials noted that LSD could be potentially useful in gaining control of bodies, whether they were willing or not. The CIA envisioned applications that ranged from removing people from Europe in the case of a Soviet attack to enable assassination of enemy leaders. On November 18th, 1953, a group of 10 scientists met at a cabin located deep in the forests of Maryland. After extended discussions, the participants agreed that to truly understand the value of the drug, an unwilling experiment would be desirable. The CIA remained keenly aware of how the public would react to any discovery of MKUltra, even if they believe these programs to be essential to national security. They must remain a tightly guarded secret. How the CIA could possibly explain dosing unassuming Americans with LSD. Precautions must be taken not only to protect operations from exposure to enemy forces, but also to conceal these activities from the American public in general, wrote the CIA's Inspector General in 1957. Knowledge that the agency is engaging in unethical and illicit activities would have serious repercussions in political and diplomatic circles and would be detrimental to the accomplishments of its mission. This is one that gets fun, and it doesn't get fun, but it gets weird. And there's another famous guy that's attached to this.
Interesting.
Operation Midnight Climax. Okay. So
yeah.
yeah.
It's like you hear that and you're like, yeah, I've done a few of those.
All right. So the CIA's initial experiments with LSD were fairly simple, if shocking. If agencies generally dose single targets, finding volunteers when they could, sometimes flipping the drug into drinks of fellow CIA employees.
Other
Over time-
employees?
Yes, on their own employees.
So they were drugging each other for
Yes,
what? For fun?
for God
For
knows what.
experiments? That's funny.
Over time, these LSD experiments grew increasingly elaborate. Perhaps the most notorious of these projects was Operation Midnight Climax. In 1955, on 225 Chestnut Street, San Francisco, California, the CIA was devoting substantial attention to decorating a bedroom. George White oversaw the interior renovations. Not much of a decor, White had storied a career in the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. When the CIA moved to drug experiments, bringing White on board became a top priority. White hung up pictures of French can-can dancers and flowers. He draped lush red bedroom curtains over windows. He framed a series of something tuberculous posters of black and white silk mats. For a middle-aged drug bureaucrat, each item invoked sex and glamour. George White wasn't building a normal bedroom, he was building a trap. White then hired a Berkeley engineer student to install bugging equipment and a two-way mirror. White sat behind the other side of the mirror, martini in hand, and waited for the actions to begin. Prostitutes would lure unexpected Johns to the bedroom, where the men would be dosed with LSD and their actions observed by White from beyond the mirror. As payment for the services, the sex workers received small amounts of cash as well as guarantee from White that he'd intercede when the women inevitably had run-ins with law enforcement. Though the CIA piloted the safe houses as staging for testing for the LSD, White's interest shifted to another element of his observation, the sex. The San Francisco house became the center of what one writer would call the CIA's carnal operation, as officials began asking new questions about how to work with prostitutes, how they could be trained, and how they could be linked, how they could be handled to handle state secrets. The agency also was looking for help from local pimps. One local San Francisco pimp that was willing to comply and help with them. That's what this sentence is about to say. Do you want to guess what the name of that pimp was?
Dolomite.
Charles Manson.
Charles Manson.
Yep.
Nah, I did not see that one coming. Yes. Wait, Manson was a pimp?
Oh. He was in San Francisco in the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, but I thought he was running a murder cult and like a sex cult, not a
Before he ran a murder and sex cult, he was a fucking San Francisco pimp
he was a San Francisco pimp.
who was actively engaging with the U.S. government and the CIA in Operation Midnight Climax.
Jesus.
Pretty wacky shit, huh?
That is pretty wild. It puts a whole new spin on like what Manson did later on with the murders and
Bro, he learned from the fucking government
how to control people, right?
with LSD, correct? LSD
and how to manipulate brains and shit. Mind
Some
control.
fucked up shit, no?
That's nuts. Well, hey, Manson, he somehow this guy, this scrubby looking dude, convinced people to go murder people. Oh well, the CIA trained him how to use LSD to control people.
Right.
10 years prior, when he was a pimp in San Francisco. Okay, now it's coming full circle. Now we're Jesus.
This dude, when I got into this, I just was like, oh my God. Like it just kept getting, the wormhole just kept getting bigger and bigger. But perhaps unsurprisingly, much of White's actions were driven by pure voyeurism. I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, White said later.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, oh, it was fun. It's just a good time for everybody. Pimps and hoes and Johns and everybody's all fucked. Just free LSD to whoever wants it.
Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage within the sanctions and blessings of the All-Highest? This is what this fucking lunatic said.
Jesus Christ.
At least he was honest. And well, some of them are like, well, I plead the fifth, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This guy's like, yeah, I was a freak. I'll admit it.
Like, yeah, I did all that shit.
The CIA's experiment with LSD persisted until 1963 before coming to a fairly anticlimactic end. In the spring of 1963, John Vance, a member of the CIA Inspector General staff, learned about the project's super repetitious administration to unwillingly, non-voluntarily human subjects. So I probably butchered that, but the MKUltra director tried to convince the CIA's independent audit board that the research should be continued. The inspector general insisted the agency follow new research ethic guidelines and bring all of the program's non-consenting volunteers to an end. In 1977, Senator Edward Kennedy oversaw congressional hearings investigating the effects of MKUltra. Congress brought in a roster of ex-CIA employees for questioning, interrogating them about who oversaw these programs, how participants were identified, and if any of these programs had been continued. The hearings turned over a number of disturbing details, particularly about the 1953 suicide of Dr. Frank Olson, Army sergeant, an Army scientist who jumped out of a hotel window several days after unwillingly consuming the drink spiked with LSD. Mid criminalization of drug users, and just a few years after Nixon declared drug abuse as public enemy number one, the ironies of the U.S. troubling experimentation with drugs appeared in sharp relief. But throughout the hearings, Congress kept hitting roadblocks. CIA staffers claimed they couldn't remember details about many of the human experimentation projects or even how many people were actually involved. The obvious next step would be to consult the records, but that presented a small problem. In 1973, amid mounting inquiries, the director of MKUltra told the workers it was a good idea if the files were destroyed, citing vague concerns about privacy and embarrassment of participants. The men who crafted MKUltra created effectively eradicated the paper record for the United States' most obviously illegal undertakings. A program born into secrecy would hold on to many of its secrets forever. So pretty much they destroyed all the files.
So they preemptively, the guy, obviously somebody knew, obviously he knew they were fucking doing something wrong.
Oh, they smelled the heat
100%.
coming, and they smelled the heat coming, and they fucking 86 that shit.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to the end of a project, you're like, you know what, we need to erase all the records of this right now. Just get rid of everything. You already know you're doing shit that's fucked up.
Yep. So that's just the first article, man.
Buddy, this shit is deep.
It gets deep, man. This one's crazy. So this guy is a psychopath. Second article I got.
Now I'm just like, I'm still mind blown about Whitey Bulger being a part of it and Charles Manson being a part of it.
And look at the effect that the negative effect that those people had on society.
Seriously, I mean, these weren't nice people.
Hundreds of people, dude.
These were infamous people.
They're and not in a good way.
No,
they definitely altered society in a very, very bad way later on in life.
Yeah, and to find out that they were trained by the CIA to do it, then makes even more sense.
Dude. Manson was in on it.
Yeah,
dude. It's wacky.
It is wacky.
All right. So the next one, because I want to move on here, because I want to get to hit everything now.
Yeah.
There's a lot on this one, Joe. The CIA's secret quest for mind control, torture, LSD, and a prisoner in chief. Okay, so this is kind of going to go over a little bit more of it, but then it gets into this one specific agent, right?
Yeah.
Okay, during the early period of the Cold War, the CIA became convinced that communists had discovered a drug or technique that would allow them to control human minds. In response, the CIA began its own secret program called MKUltra to search for a mind control drug that could be weaponized against enemies. MKUltra, which operated from the 1950s into the early 1960s, was created and run by a chemist known as Sidney. His last name is Gottlieb. So Lotbay.
Yeah.
Sidney Lotbay, because I'm going to say his name a lot. Journalist Stephen Kinzer, who spent several years investigating the program, calls the operation the most sustained search in history for techniques of mind control. Some of Gottbay's experiments were covertly funded at universities and research centers, Kinzer says, while others were conducted in American prisons and in detention centers in Japan, Germany, and the Philippines. Many of his unwitting subjects endured psychological torture, ranging from electroshock therapy to high doses of LSD, according to Kinzer's research. Gottlieb wanted to create a way to seize control of people's minds, and he realized it was a two-part process, Kinzer said. First, you have to blast away the existing mind. Second, you have to find a way to insert a new mind into a resulting void. We didn't get too far on number 2, but we did get a lot of work on number 1. Kinzer noted that top secret nature of Gottlieb's work makes it impossible to measure the human cost of the experiment. We don't know how many people died, but a number of them did, and many lives were permanently destroyed, he says. Ultimately, Gottlieb concluded that mind control was not possible. After MKUltra shut down, he went on to lead the CIA program that created poisons and high-tech gadgets for spies to use. Kinzer writes about Gottlieb and MKUltra in his new book, Poisoner in Chief. So if you guys are really interested in the subject, go look up the book Poisoner in Chief.
Poisoner in Chief. Yeah, well, I mean, if you can't get around to brainwash people, but you figured out how to kill them, then you should just run with what you know.
I guess that's one way of putting it. How the CIA brought LSD to America. As part of the search for the drugs that would allow to control the human mind, CIA scientists became aware of the existence of LSD, and this became an obsession for the early directors of MKUltra. Actually, MKUltra director Sidney Gottlieb can now be seen as the man who brought LSD to America. He was the unwitted godfather of the entire LSD counterculture. In the early 1950s, he arranged for the CIA, get this, to pay $240,000 to buy the world's entire supply of LSD.
Holy shit.
That's a lot of scratch in the 1950s, bro.
It is a lot of scratch. But you know what? What's interesting is that instead of them making LSD or like creating LSD, they found it somewhere else and brought it in. Because usually usually our government likes to make drugs or come up with new drugs and do a lot of R&D.
Right.
The fact that they found it somewhere else and brought it in, it's kind of interesting.
That doesn't shock me as much, Joe, because like look at the fentanyl crisis right now. And we already know that 90% of the world's fentanyl is made in China.
Right.
So why are we having such a major fentanyl crisis in America when 90% of it's being made in China?
That's interesting.
Or like, you know how they say 85% of the world's heroin is from Afghanistan?
Yeah.
We get into a 20 plus year war with Afghanistan and then we have a heroin epidemic. Isn't that a little odd?
That is a little odd.
So, I mean, it is odd, but I'm just kind of throwing ideas out to you, Joe.
Yeah, it's not beyond the realm of possibilities, but yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's usually fire.
It's always something.
He brought this to the United States and he began spreading it around to hospitals, clinics, prisons, and other institutions, asking them through bogus foundations to carry out research projects and find out what LSD was, how people reacted to it, and how it might be able to be used as a tool for mind control.
Sure.
Now, the people who volunteered for these experiments and began taking LSD, in many cases, found it very pleasurable. So they told their friends about it. Who were those who told their friends? Ken Kenzie, the author of the One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
What?
So literally, the guy who wrote the book on The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was later a movie with
LSD so much that you just talked about it and told people about it?
And wrote the book, The One That Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Also, all right, here's another one. Here's a pretty cool story. So did Robert Hunter, the lyricist for the Grateful Dead.
No, that makes sense. I can see it.
Which went on to become a great provider of the LSD culture in the 1960s hippie movement. Allen Greensburg, the poet who preached the value of great personal adventure of using LSD, got his first LSD experiment through the MKUltra project.
So CIA's just out here hooking people up with free drugs and like, go ahead, tell your friends. And they're just like, yeah, it's awesome.
Experiences with them.
Right. They're probably upset. Like, dude, I was at work and I was standing by the water cooler and the water cooler melted and then
it turned into a fish.
There were fish in the water cooler and then the whole thing just melted and the floor fell out from underneath me. It's a weird day. It's a weird Friday.
And another willing participant in the early LSD experiments was none other than author Hunter S. Thompson.
What did he write? I know the name.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Right. I was wondering when that was going to pop up.
Yeah, he willingly participated in the LSD MKUltra experiment in the 60s. There's a lot of famous people that are attached to this MKUltra shit, dude.
Yeah.
But those are the ones
really
that
it makes you wonder like how big of a role the CIA has been playing all these years in the drug problem in this country.
Probably a lot. I mean, I think they're involved in bringing it in and arresting people. It's like a kangaroo circus.
Yeah.
Honestly, it literally is, bro. Like, have you ever watched that movie American Made?
I don't think so.
You gotta watch it, dude. It's the story with Tom Cruise. I can't remember the fucking guy's name right now. Barry Seal.
Okay.
He started out, he was a pilot, and he was getting paid by the CIA it was during the 70s, during the war in Panama and Central America and all that shit.
Okay.
And with Noriega and all them, and his job was to drive over Central America and take like pictures of the communists and shit, right?
Yeah.
And then later on, he pretty much was told by the CIA to hook up with Pablo Escobar and start flying fucking cocaine into America.
Oh, no kidding.
And it's all in the movie, bro. American Made.
Yeah.
So, like, literally, the CIA was involved in getting the drugs from Pablo, bringing it to America, and then they were involved in arresting people for the drug.
For the drugs. Yeah.
It's like I said, bro. It's a hamster wheel, bro.
That's nuts.
It really fucking is. It's a hamster wheel. They're responsible for bringing the drugs here. They're responsible because it's a business, bro. The drug business is a business. You build prisons. You create laws. You pass bills.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole for the next 50 minutes, but I digress. So the CIA brought LSD to America unwittingly, and actually, it's tremendous irony that the drug that the CIA hoped would be its key to controlling humanity actually wound up fueling a generational rebellion that was dedicated to destroying everything that the CIA held dear and defended, i.e. the hippie movement of the late 70s. On how MKUltra experiments on prisoners, including crime boss Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger was one of those prisoners who volunteered, so Whitey Bulger again. He was told as an experiment amid finding a cure for schizophrenia, and he was promised time shaved off his sentence. As part of this experiment, he was given LSD every day for more than a year.
What the fuck?
Yes.
LSD every day for a year, for more than a year.
That's fucking insane.
What do you think that does to the human psyche after that much time?
Turns you into a psychopathic killer.
Yeah.
Which Whitey was. Dude, every time I'm with my daughter and I drive over the Neapolitan Bridge into Boston, because you know they call that the Bulger burial grounds.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he used to kill people and bury them under the Neapolitan Bridge on the 93 overpass. I always tell my daughter, I'm like, we're on the Whitey Bulger burial grounds. She's like, what does that mean? I'm like, Whitey Bulger killed and buried a lot of fucking people where we're driving right now. She later realized that this had nothing to do with schizophrenia, and he was a guinea pig in a government experiment aimed at seeing what people's long-term reactions to LSD was. Essentially, could we make a person lose their mind by feeding them LSD every day over such a long period? Bulger wrote afterward about his experiences, which he described as quite horrific. He thought he was going insane. He wrote, I was in prison for committing a crime, but they were committing a greater crime on me. And towards the end of his life, Bulger came to realize the truth of what had happened to him, and he actually told his friends that he was going to find the doctor in Atlanta who was the head of the government experiment, and he was going to go to the penitentiary and kill him himself.
He wasn't happy about that, yeah.
This is where it gets even wackier. Here we go. On the CIA hiring Nazi doctors and Japanese torturers to learn methods. CIA Mind Control Project MKUltra was essentially a continuation of the work that began in the Japanese and Nazi concentration camps. Not only was it roughly based on those experiments, but the CIA actually hired the Visitor Akim. They actually, so this is a fucking $5 word that I'm not going to be able to pronounce. They actually hired POW Japanese and Nazi torturers to come out and explain what they had found on their research for what they did during the war. So the CIA actually approached prisoners of war, both Nazis and Japanese torturers, and asked them, hey, you did this shit. What happened? Like, talk to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For example, Nazi doctors had conducted extensive experiments with mescaline at the Dachau concentration camp. And the CIA was very interested in figuring out whether mescaline, which is another hallucinogenic drug, I didn't know if you knew that, could be key to mind control. That was one of their biggest venues of investigation. So they hired Nazi doctors who had been involved in those projects to advise them. Another thing the Nazis provided was information about poisonous gases like sarin, which is still being used. Nazi doctors came to America to Fort Derrick in Maryland, which was the center of the project, to lecture to CIA officers to tell them how long it took people to die from sarin gas. On the more extreme experiments, the Goblet conducted overseas, Goblet and the CIA established secret detention centers throughout Europe and East Asia, particularly in Japan, Germany, and the Philippines, which were largely under American control in the early 1950s. And therefore, Goblet didn't have to worry about any legal entanglements in these places. CIA officers in Europe and Asia were capturing enemy agents and others who they felt might be suspected persons or were otherwise what they called expendable. They would grab these people and throw them into cells and test all kinds of not just drug portions, but other techniques like electroshock therapy, extreme temperatures, sensory deprivation, isolation, and other torturous methods. All in the meantime, bombarding them with questions, trying to see if they could get them to break down resistance and to find a way to destroy the human mind and ego. So these were projects designed not only to understand the human mind, but to figure out how to destroy people physically and mentally. And that made Goblet, although in some sort of a way a passionate person, chuckled when I saw that. Certainly the most prolific torturer of his generation. So yeah, that's more up to par. On how these experiments were unsupervised, this guy, Sidney Goblet, had a license to kill. He was allowed to requisition human subjects across the United States and around the world and subject them to any kind of abuse that he wanted, even up to the level of it being fatal, yet nobody looked over their shoulder. Goblet operated almost completely without supervision. He had some sort of a checkoff from his tutorial boss and from his real boss, Richard Helms, and from the director of the CIA, Alan Dulles. But none of them really wanted to know what he was doing. This guy had a license to kill. He was allowed to requisition human subjects across the United States and around the world and subject them to any kind of abuse that he wanted, even up to the levels of it being fatal, yet nobody looked over their shoulder. He never had to file serious reports to anybody. I think the mentality must have been, this project is so important, mind control, if we can master it, is the key to being the number one global power of the world.
That's the key? Mind control?
I guess that's what they were aiming for, Joe.
Sounds like it.
On how Goblet destroyed evidence about his experiments when he left the CIA. The end of Goblet's career, we're ready for this, ended in 1973.
73.
Remember when I said earlier when the fucking files were destroyed?
Yeah.
1973.
Oh, shit.
Kind of ironic.
Yeah.
When his patron, Richard Helms, who was the director of the CIA, was removed by President Richard Nixon. Once Helms was gone, it was just a matter of time until Goblet would be gone. And most important was that Helms was really the only person at the CIA who had an idea of what Goblet had been doing. So they were both on their way out of the CIA. They agreed that they should destroy all records of MKUltra. Goblet eventually drove out of the CIA Records Center and ordered to the archives to destroy boxes full of MKUltra records. However, it turns out that there were some records found in another place. There was a depot for expense accounts reports that had not been destroyed and various other pieces of paper that remained. So there is enough out there to reconstruct somewhat of what he did, but his efforts to wipe away his traces by destroying all of those documents in the early 70s was more successful than not.
Huh.
So he destroyed the bulk of it, but they got some shit like expense reports and but like the real nooks and crannies, they never really got.
Yeah, so there's probably no way to tell if they actually got around. Well, there's some people who claim to have been brainwashed, right, by him, but not really. There's no records per se.
No hard evidence. It's all kind of just hearsay at this point.
Yeah.
But this guy was clearly a fucking sociopath.
Interesting.
Or he was a monster at the most, bro. You know what I mean?
At least, yeah.
So before I get into the article about the girl, I just want to read real quick because this is important. This is several notable individuals who have been confirmed to have been involved in the CIA's MKUltra project, either as unwitting victims or volunteers for the experiments. Notable individuals confirmed in the MKUltra experiments: Charles Manson, Ken Kieski, the author of The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Hunter S. Thompson, Robert Hunter, the lyricist for Grateful Dead, Alan Greensberg, the renowned beat poet who allegedly received his first dose of LSD from a CIA-backed researcher, Ted Kaczynski, better known as the Unabomber. Kaczynski participated in several ethically questionable psychological experiments when he was a student at Harvard at 16 years old, which some believe may have exacerbated his later mental health issues and antisocial behavior.
And like you said before, back to the Ivy League schools.
Yep.
Harvard.
James Joseph Whitey Bulger, the notorious Boston mobster who was an inmate at Atlanta's federal penitentiary when he and other prisoners were given LSD daily for over a year as part of an experiment that they were told was a potential cure for schizophrenia, and they were promised time shaved off their sentences. Bulger described the experiment as horrific. Frank Olson, an Army biochemist and a CIA civilian, Olson was unwittingly was conveniently given LSD in a drink by his supervisors. He suffered a severe psychotic episode and died by falling from a 13-story hotel window several days later. His death was initially ruled a suicide, but later suggested to a possible murder or the result of a deep depression from the induced drug. Conspiracy theories. Many modern-day conspiracy theories circulate online claiming the various celebrities or public figures are modern-day victims of the MKUltra style mind control, but these claims are largely unsubstantial and not based on fucking shit. Fuck you. I hate when they always do that at the end. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, no. There's no coincidence.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just like a allegedly. I don't even want to read that because that just makes me disgusted.
Right.
Literally, I don't. Because it's like, you fuckers knew what you were doing.
You know, you were drugging people. You were drugging your coworkers. You were drugging people in prisons. You were
Yeah. Go
drugging
fucking
people off the
off.
street, drugging people at Ivy League schools. Like, come on.
So I'm gonna end with this one, Joe. At 16, I was experimented on by the CIA, and now I'm suing. Okay. The first thing Lana Pontier remembers about the Allen Memorial Institute, a former psychiatric hospital in Montreal, Canada, is the smell, almost medicinal. I didn't like the look of the place. It didn't look like a hospital to me, she told the BBC from her home in Manitoba. The hospital, once home of the Scottish shipping magnate, would be her home for a month in April of 1958 after a judge ordered the 16-year-old to undergo treatment for disobedient behavior. It was there that Mrs. Ponting became one of thousands of people experimented on as part of a CIA top secret research project into mind control. Now she is one of two named plaintiffs in a class action lawsuits for the Canadian victims of the experiments. On Thursday, a judge denied the Royal Victorian Hospital appeal, paving the way for the lawsuit to proceed. According to her medical files, which she obtained once recently, Ms. Ponty had been running away from home and hanging out with her friends that her parents disapproved of and was acting difficult when her family moved from Ottawa to Montreal. I was an ordinary teenager, she recalled, but the judge sent to Allen. Her parents pretty much placed her in this juvenile facility.
Yeah, for being troublesome.
Yes. Once there, she became an unwitting participant in a covert CIA experiment known as MKUltra. The Cold War project tested the effects of psychedelic drugs like LSD, electroshock treatments, and brainwashing techniques on human beings without their consent. Over 100 institutional and schools in the U.S. and Canada were involved. At the Allen McGill University research, Dr. Ewan Cameron drugged patients and made them listen to recordings, sometimes thousands of times, in a process he called exploring. Dr. Cameron would make Mrs. Ponting listen to the same tape recording hundreds of times. It ran over and over and over. You're a good girl. You're a bad girl, Mrs. Ponting recalled. The technique was a form of psychic driving, says doctoral student Jordan Torbay, who has researched his experiments and their ethical implications. Essentially, the minds of the patients were manipulated using verbal cues, she says. Adding, he also looked at the effects of sleep drugs, forced sensory deprivation, and induced coma. Medical records show Mrs. Ponton was given LSD as well as drugs like sodium, almethyltrol, a barbiturate, deoxycytine, a stimulant, as well as nitrous oxide gas and sedative known as laughing gas. By April 30th, the patient had explorations. She had become quite tense and extremely violent when given the nitrous gas, throwing herself half out of bed and starting to scream. Dr. Cameron wrote in one of her medical files, which Mrs. Poddings has obtained through a Freedom of Information request. The harsh truth about the MKUltra experiments first came to light in the 1970s. Since then, several victims have tried to sue the U.S. and Canada. Lawsuits in the U.S. have largely been unsuccessful, but in 1988, a Canadian judge ordered the U.S. government to pay 9 victims $67,000 each. In 1992, the Canadian government paid $100,000, about $80,000 at the time, to each 77 victims but did not admit liability. Mrs. Ponting was not among them because she did not yet know she was a victim, she said. For decades, Mrs. Ponting said she felt something was wrong with her, but she did not learn of the details of her own involvement in the experiment until somewhat recently. She says she had little memory of what happened at the Allen or in the years that followed. Mrs. Ponting eventually married and moved to Manitoba, where she has 2 children whom she is still close to. But she says she has suffered lifelong repercussions from her time at the Allen Hospital. I felt it all my life because I was wondering why I wouldn't think this way or, what would happen to me. She says she had to have a cocktail of medications her whole life to deal with mental health issues, which attributed to her being at the Allen, as well as reoccurring nightmares of the experiments. Sometimes I'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night because of what have happened to me while I was at the Allen Hospital, she said. The Royal Victorian Hospital and the McGill University declined to comment as the case is before the courts. The government appointed the BBC to the previous settlement in 1992, which it said it was done for humanitarian reasons and did not accept legal liability. For Mrs. Ponting, the lawsuit is a chance to finally get some closure. Sometimes I sit in my living room and my mind goes back and I can think of the things that happened to me. She says, every time I see a picture of Dr. Cameron, it makes me angry, it makes me sick. I want to throw up. Although Dr. Cameron's work has since become synonymous with the MKUltra experiments, Mrs. Tobey says her research shows he didn't know what he was being funded by the CIA at the time. His work with the U.S. Intelligence Agency ended in 1964, and he shortly then died of a heart attack in 1967. But regardless of whether he knew or not, Mrs. Tobey says he should have known the experiments he was conducting were not ethical. Right. She says she hopes the lawsuits go forward and that the victims get some form of compensation and justice. It isn't really about giving the patients back what they lost because that's not possible, but sort of almost making sure that their suffering wasn't in vain, that we can do. That's the least that we can do for them, she says. So this is one woman that knew that she was part of the MKO, found out later in life, and now she's trying to sue the Canadian.
Yeah, now,
Canada.
my question is, if you're accepting money and you're accepting drugs from the American CIA and you're doing these experiments, I'm assuming they're going to tell you what you're trying to experiment for, right?
You would think any ethical doctor would ask why.
Like, why are you doing these experiments? What are you expecting to see? What's the theory?
result?
What am I
Like
looking
if
for?
somebody was like, hey, I want you to give this drug to a patient and then play this recording over and over again in their head, I'd be like, okay, why am I doing this? And what is the outcome that you're looking for?
What are you hoping to
And
gain
I'm not
with
even
this?
a doctor.
Right.
Like what's the end game here? Like, what are we trying to do?
Seriously, like how much money and drugs do you have to give somebody for them to not ask questions about it, to go against their Hippocratic oath of like helping people, right?
Yeah, because I mean, even doctors, they're sworn to an oath, right?
Right.
What's best for their patients. I don't know what the entire oath is, but they're supposed to act within the boundaries of what is in the best interest for the patient.
I would imagine.
Probably got paid handsomely
Yeah.
and looked the other way.
Just
Is what I'm willing to bet.
did the experiment the way they asked and didn't ask questions as to why they were doing it.
I mean, dude, can you think of any other incentive why they would participate in this shit?
No.
Financial compensation.
Right.
I mean,
He was a Canadian doctor, right? He wasn't
a Canadian doctor at that mental health institution.
he wasn't like a German refugee, like a part of the
Who the hell knows about that? I mean, the guy had a heart attack about 3 years later. So, and I air quote heart attack. We know we know you can give drugs to people that cause heart attacks. So
imitate heart attacks. Yeah, they can cause heart attacks and are undetectable.
Yeah.
You know the CIA has those things.
Bro, I mean, this is fucking crazy. Dude, I'm like speechless on this one.
Yeah.
Because we just like we did the dark web. We've done this one. We did yours last week, which is fucking crazy. The GATE program.
Yeah, which is supposed to be an education program, but the things that people say about it sounds a lot like what they were doing in MKUltra.
Which is why I had to go with this, dude. Like when you went with that, you got my wheels turned. I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do MKUltra.
Yeah.
Because I've known about this for a while, never really done deep dives into it.
Yeah.
I knew Ted Kaczynski was involved in it, and I knew Whitey Bulger, but I was shocked when I saw like Hunter S. Thompson, but I was really shocked when I saw fucking Charles Manson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this program destroyed people's lives, and not only destroyed, it created monsters, dude.
Right. Yeah. So that's
Kaczynski and fucking Whitey Bulger and Charles Manson. These people were not fucking good people after this.
No, I mean they hurt people tenfold from what was done to them. It sounds like.
Exactly. So it's like this is fucked shit.
Yeah. Interesting.
So that's my fucking topic on the MKUltra experiment. If you guys know anything else that I did not touch upon, please fucking leave some comments, because there's a lot of smoke to this fire.
All right, man. Well, good stuff, man. A lot of stuff I didn't know about MKUltra. I feel like after listening to all that, I feel like I only knew the bare minimum. Like I only knew the name and just the gist of it. But compared to what actually happened, that's nuts.
Wacky. Fucking wacky, no?
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it, man. We'll wrap this one up. Thanks for coming on board. Guys, Rob, thanks for doing all the research, looking into that, man. That was good.
Dude, trust me, I had a really, I mean, it's fucked up, but like, I really enjoyed looking into this one, because I was like, I had so many holy fuck moments when I was looking into it.
Yeah.
That it was worth it to me.
Okay.
A lot. Not that, you know what I mean? I fucking love every episode we do, but like this one really, like, got my wheels turning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I hear you. All right, well, guys, thanks for listening. I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. I know, because that's
Merry Christmas.
I hope you were all good this year and you don't get visited by the ghosts of Christmas future. And if you do get visited, I hope you turn your shit around and figure it out and pay Bob Cratchit what he deserves. 15 shillings isn't enough.
You know, it's a great Christmas movie. Now that you mention it, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, that one is a good movie.
You know, the guy's on the bridge, ready to bite it.
Right. I mean, he
gets visited by angels.
He fixes up that nice house. I mean, he saved his brother when he was a kid. If he wasn't there for that, his brother would have never saved those people in the war. I mean, he did all kinds of stuff.
I almost slept on that one, and I just thought of it now.
Yeah. But what's funny is like there's a story about that one, why it's such a staple for the Christmas time, and it has something to do with how it wasn't licensed, so programs like TV networks and stuff were able to play it for 24 hours without paying any royalties to anybody.
Jesus Christ.
And because they were able to do that, they played that movie for 24-hour blocks around the Christmas time, it became a Christmas tradition to watch that movie. So it all goes back to saving a buck. It is a good movie. What's all true. But guys, like we said before, have a Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining us. As always, get out there, find your spirits.
Salud.
All right.